She just wanted to save her puppies from the storm, even injured, until a man. In the midst of the rain, she could barely stand, but she didn't abandon her puppies for even a second. Between cold walls, she waited without knowing if the next day would come. That's when a man stopped in front of the gate, and something changed. No one imagined that by opening that door, he would be entering a story he would never forget. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll hear in your life. The rain showed no mercy in Riverdale Springs, a small town in rural America where time seemed to move more slowly than the heavy clouds in the sky. Sarah Mitchell, a 35-year-old veterinarian, watched the raindrops slide down the window of her makeshift clinic in the back of the house she had inherited from her grandparents. The peeling walls and water-stained ceiling contrasted with the meticulously organized medical equipment on a solid oak table. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Emily, her childhood friend and current assistant at the clinic. "Sarah, you need to come right now. I found an emergency situation in the abandoned house near the creek." The urgency in Emily's voice made Sarah grab her medical bag without questioning. Within minutes, she was driving down the muddy road, the windshield wipers barely keeping up with the intensity of the rain. Her heart raced when she spotted Emily, soaked, frantically waving at the entrance of a property that was almost in ruins. "What happened?" asked Sarah, sheltering herself as best she could from the storm. "See for yourself," Emily pointed to an opening in the side wall of the house. What Sarah saw tightened her chest. A visibly debilitated dog, with wounds all over her body, and a deformed paw was protecting 4 newborn puppies. The environment was one of complete misery, humidity, dirt, and a smell that mixed mold and abandonment. "We need to act quickly," decided Sarah, approaching the animal cautiously. The dog, a medium-sized mixed breed with golden fur almost unrecognizable under the dirt, raised her eyes to Sarah. There was something in those brown eyes, not fear or aggression, but a kind of recognition, as if she understood that here was a possibility of salvation. "She has a high fever," noted Sarah after a preliminary assessment. "The paw has a poorly healed open fracture, and the puppies are dehydrated." While they prepared an improvised stretcher with blankets, Emily explained that she was passing by the location when she heard a faint crying sound. Something made her stop, despite the rain and her rush to get to work. "Something told me I needed to check," explained Emily, helping to accommodate the puppies next to their mother. "It was as if someone was calling me." The transport to the clinic was tense. The dog, despite being weak, remained alert, her eyes fixed on the humans who now determined the fate of her family. One of the puppies, the smallest one, was breathing with worrying difficulty. Upon arrival, Sarah transformed her small clinic into an intensive care unit. She cleaned the dog's wounds, applied antibiotics, stabilized the fractured paw, and began hydrating the puppies. The smallest one, which Sarah called Whisper, required special attention. "This little one is fighting hard," she murmured to Emily, who was watching the procedure anxiously. "But I won't give up on him." All night long, Sarah remained by the animal's side. Around 3 in the morning, when the storm outside seemed to mimic the battle for life happening inside the clinic, the smallest puppy stopped breathing. "No. Oh no." Sarah initiated gentle cardiac massage with her fingers, alternating with assisted breathing. "Come on, little warrior, it's not your time." After endless minutes of effort, the tiny puppy responded with a weak whimper and started breathing again. Sarah felt tears running down her face. This wasn't just another clinical case. That family of dogs had awakened something deep inside her. By morning, when the first rays of sunlight finally broke through the clouds, the dog slightly raised her head and licked Sarah's hand. It was a simple gesture, but loaded with meaning. "I think she deserves a name," said Emily, who had returned at dawn with coffee and bread. "How about Luna, for a new beginning?" Sarah agreed, but her thoughts were already beyond the present moment. Her small clinic would not adequately accommodate the canine family's recovery. Additionally, there were legal issues to consider. Who owned these animals? Did the abandoned house belong to someone? And most importantly, what would happen when they recovered? "We need a bigger plan," she commented, while noting Luna's and her puppy's vital signs on a chart. It was at that moment that Richard Morgan, the town's mayor, entered the clinic without warning. Tall, with greying hair and an always serious countenance, he was known for his administrative coldness and little interest in Riverdale Springs' social or environmental causes. "Dr. Mitchell, I came personally to verify what's happening," he announced, looking disdainfully at the animals. "I received a complaint about noise and possible illegal animal breeding in a residential area." Sarah felt her blood boil. "Mayor, we're dealing with an emergency rescue case. These animals were found abandoned in deplorable conditions." "I understand your good intention, Doctor, but there are procedures. The Municipal Animal Control Center should be contacted in these cases," he replied with irritating tranquility. "So they can be euthanized?" retorted Emily, unable to contain herself. The mayor adjusted his tie, visibly uncomfortable, "So they can be treated according to established protocols." Sarah realized there was something more to this visit. The mayor's sudden interest in a case of abandoned animals seemed out of place. "Do you know the house where they were found?" she asked, carefully observing the man's reaction. A muscle twitched in the mayor's face. "What house?" "The abandoned property near the creek on the old road," clarified Emily. "Ah, that ruin," he evaded, but his gaze avoided Sarah's. "It must be municipal property now. Many plots in that area were expropriated for the new development project." Development. Project? Sarah hadn't heard of any project for that region. Before she could question further, the mayor checked his watch and announced he needed to leave. "You have 48 hours to regularize the situation of these animals, Dr. Mitchell," he declared on his way out. "After that, I will be obliged to take official measures." When the door closed, Emily and Sarah exchanged worried looks. What seemed like a simple animal rescue now took on the contours of a greater mystery. "There's something strange about all this," commented Emily. "The mayor has never been interested in cases of abandoned animals before." Sarah nodded, thoughtful. She looked at Luna, who now slept more peacefully, and at the puppies who were feeding with renewed vigor. A determination grew within her. "It doesn't matter what's happening, Emily. These animals are now our responsibility, and I'm going to protect them, whatever it takes." What Sarah didn't know was that this rescue would forever change not only the fate of Luna and her puppies, but would also reveal secrets long buried in Riverdale Springs. The 48 hours established by Mayor Richard Morgan passed with alarming speed. Sarah had barely slept, alternating her care between Luna and the 4 puppies, especially little Whisper, who still required attention. The veterinarian observed the dog, who, despite being debilitated, demonstrated an impressive willpower. "How could someone abandon you in that state?" murmured Sarah, changing Luna's paw bandage. Emily entered the clinic carrying folders and with an expression that mixed anxiety and excitement. "You won't believe what I discovered," she announced, spreading documents on the table. "I went by the town library and researched the old archives about that property." Sarah approached, curious. "The house where we found Luna belonged to the Wilson family, one of the founding families of Riverdale Springs," explained Emily. "The last official owner was August Wilson, who disappeared about 15 years ago." "Disappeared?" Sarah frowned. "Yes, in circumstances never clarified. The house has been abandoned since then, but interestingly it was never officially transferred to the municipality. According to these documents, it still legally belongs to August Wilson's heirs." Sarah picked up one of the old photos Emily had brought. In it, a middle-aged man smiled beside a young couple in front of the same house, which at the time appeared to be a beautiful property with well-maintained gardens. "Who are these people with August?" she asked, pointing to the couple. Emily hesitated for a moment. "That's where the story gets interesting. The young woman is Lily Wilson, August's daughter, and the young man," she made a dramatic pause, "is Richard Morgan." The revelation fell like a bomb on Sarah. The mayor, he was August Wilson's son-in-law? Exactly. Richard was married to Lily, but they separated shortly before August's disappearance. After that, Lily also left town. Nobody knows for sure where she went. Sarah's mind worked quickly, connecting the dots. This explains the mayor's sudden interest in the animals rescued from that property. He doesn't want us messing around in that place. There's more, continued Emily, showing a newspaper clipping. I found this news from 3 months ago. The mayor's office announced an eco-resort project exactly in the area where the house is located. $1 million investment that, according to the report, will transform the economic face of Riverdale Springs. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. How can he develop a project on a property that doesn't legally belong to the municipality? That's the question. Emily lowered her voice as if the walls could hear. I think the mayor is trying to override the rights of the true heirs. A whimper from Luna interrupted the conversation. The dog was trying to stand up, her gaze fixed on the clinic door. Seconds later, someone knocked. Sarah opened the door and found herself facing Charles Stevens, the veteran reporter of the local newspaper. With his 60 years and a notebook always at hand, he was known for his integrity and for never abandoning a story until it was completely unraveled. Dr. Mitchell, I heard about the rescue you made, he said, looking over his reading glasses. May I meet the animals? Sarah let him in, watching with interest Luna's reaction. The dog, normally distrustful of strangers, seemed strangely calm with Charles's presence. She seems to recognize me, commented the journalist, approaching cautiously. Have you seen her before? Asked Emily, surprised. Charles knelt beside, the animal slowly extending his hand. Luna sniffed his fingers and, to Sarah's astonishment, licked them gently. This dog belonged to August Wilson, revealed Charles, with a voice laden with emotion. He called her Star. She was just a puppy when August disappeared. Sarah and Emily exchanged astonished looks. How can you be sure? Questioned Sarah. By the star-shaped mark on her chest, Charles pointed to an irregular white spot on Luna's. Golden fur now more visible after the bath and care she had received. And because I was investigating August's disappearance when it all happened, he was my friend. The revelations accumulated like the clouds that were again forming in the sky of Riverdale Springs. Charles told them that August Wilson had discovered irregularities in the town's accounts when Richard Morgan was just the finance secretary. A few days before presenting the evidence to the district attorney, August disappeared. I could never prove anything, lamented Charles. The investigation was archived for lack of evidence. Richard rose politically, and the story was forgotten. By most people. And his daughter Lily? Why did she also leave town? Asked Emily. Charles's face darkened. Lily was pregnant when her father disappeared. She tried to continue the investigation that August had started, but began receiving threats. For safety, she decided to leave Riverdale Springs. Did you maintain contact with her? Inquired Sarah, increasingly involved in that plot. Only for a few years. Then we lost contact. The last time I spoke with her was approximately 10 years. Hagos? Sarah looked at Luna with new eyes. She wasn't just an abandoned dog. She was a living connection to a past full of unresolved mysteries. And the puppies. It was as if fate had created a new generation to witness the truth. What do we do now? Asked Emily. In less than 24 hours, the mayor will return to fulfill his threat to take the animals. Charles stood up, adjusting his glasses with determination. We need to find Lily Wilson. If she is the legitimate owner of the house and of Star, or Luna, as you called her, then she has legal rights over this situation. But how do we find her in such a short time? Questioned Sarah. The journalist smiled for the first time. I have my methods, and I also have one last piece of information that I've kept with me all these years. Before disappearing, August gave me a sealed envelope and said, if something happens to me, deliver this to my daughter when it's safe. I never opened that envelope, respecting my friend's trust. The sound of rain returned to drum on the clinic's roof. Luna settled better, positioning herself protectively around her puppies. Sarah felt she was in the middle of something much bigger than a simple animal rescue. We have less than a day to find Lily and discover what's in that envelope, concluded Charles. Meanwhile, you need to keep Luna and the puppies safe. That night, while Emily and Charles began their search for Lily Wilson, Sarah remained at the clinic, standing guard. As a precaution, she installed improvised security cameras and asked some trusted friends to take turns keeping watch nearby. Around midnight, one of the puppies, which Sarah had named Brave, began barking insistently. Luna stood up, ears alert. Sarah turned off the lights and observed through the window. A silhouette moved stealthily in the clinic's parking lot. Sarah's heart raced when she recognized Jack, Mayor Richard's personal assistant. He seemed to be examining the location, possibly planning the best way to access the clinic. With trembling hands, Sarah sent a message to Emily. "They're watching the clinic. I think they're going to try to take the animals before the agreed deadline." The response came almost instantly. "We're on our way with important news. Hold tight." While watching Jack take notes and photograph the place, Sarah noticed that Luna had positioned herself by her side, as if understanding the threat and being ready to defend her family, despite her debilitated condition. "Don't worry," whispered Sarah, gently stroking the dog's head. "I won't let anything happen to you." What Sarah didn't imagine was that that night held revelations that would forever change not only the destiny of the animals, but of all Riverdale Springs. The tension grew inside the clinic as Sarah watched Jack circle the perimeter of the building like a predator studying its prey. Luna remained by her side, her body tense despite her physical weakness. The rain, which had returned to fall with intensity, created a liquid curtain that distorted the external images. When the mayor's assistant finally moved away, Sarah allowed herself to breathe deeply. The feeling of relief, however, didn't last long. Headlights cut through the darkness, and an unknown car parked in front of the clinic. Sarah prepared for the worst, positioning herself protectively in front of the animals. The doorbell rang. Once, twice, 3 times in quick succession. It was the safety code arranged with Emily. Even so, Sarah approached the door cautiously. "Who is it?" she asked, keeping her voice firm despite her nervousness. "Emily and Charles," came the familiar response. "And we have company." When Sarah opened the door, her gaze immediately crossed with that of a woman approximately 45 years old, brown hair with grey strands, and eyes that carried the weight of many untold stories. There was something familiar in that face, as if Sarah had seen it before. "This is Lily Wilson," introduced Charles, quickly closing the door behind them. Sarah felt the impact of those words. August's daughter, Richard's ex-wife, was there before her, after 15 years of absence. Before anyone could speak, a high-pitched emotional sound cut through the environment. Luna, who until then remained lying with her puppies, stood up in a visible effort and walked slowly toward Lily, her tail wagging weakly. "Star?" Lily's voice faltered, loaded with emotion. "My God, is it really you?" The woman knelt down, gently, hugging the dog, who responded with enthusiastic licks despite her fragile condition. Tears flowed freely down Lily's face. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered between sobs. "How did you survive all these years?" While observing that reunion, Sarah felt a lump in her throat. There was something almost sacred in that moment, a connection that transcended words. "She must have remained on the property all this time," suggested Charles, also visibly moved. "Perhaps someone fed her occasionally, or she learned to survive on her own." "And now she has puppies," observed Lily, noticing the little ones who watched the scene with curiosity. A new generation. Emily served coffee for everyone while Lily, still sitting on the floor next to Luna, told her story. After her father's disappearance and the threats she received, she moved to the northeast, adopting her mother's maiden name. There she gave birth to a girl, Claire, now 15 years old. "I never told Richard about the pregnancy," she revealed. "Our marriage was already over when I discovered I was expecting a baby, and after what happened to my father, I couldn't risk it." "Why did you come back now?" asked Sarah. Lily exchanged a significant look with Charles. "I received an anonymous letter 3 weeks ago. It contained only a newspaper clipping about the resort project and a phrase, 'They're going to erase the last vestiges.'" Charles took his folder and removed the envelope that August had entrusted to him. "I think the time has come to discover what your father wanted you to know, Lily." With trembling hands, Lily opened the yellowed envelope. Inside was an old key and a handwritten note. "The real treasure is where the sun meets the water. Truth cannot stay buried forever. It's my father's handwriting, confirmed Lily, running her fingers over the words as if she could feel August's presence through them. Where the sun meets the water, repeated Emily thoughtfully. It sounds like some kind of code. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, as if seeking something important in her memory. On our family's property, there was a specific spot where the evening sun reflected perfectly on the creek that crosses the land. My father always said it was his favorite place to think. Do you believe he might have hidden something there? Asked Sarah. There's only one way to find out, replied Lily with renewed determination. Charles checked his watch. It's almost 2 in the morning. If we're going to explore the property, it needs to be before dawn. The preliminary works for the resort begin tomorrow, according to my contacts at the mayor's office. But what about the animals? Worried Sarah. We can't leave them unprotected, especially after Jack's visit. It was Emily who offered the solution. My brother Michael can stand guard here. He's a police officer, and he's off duty today. The plan was quickly organized. Michael arrived in 20 minutes, bringing with him not only his reassuring presence, but also equipment that could be useful in the expedition. Powerful flashlights, a folding shovel, and a metal detector he used in his collector hobby. Take good care of them, asked Sarah, caressing Luna one last time before leaving. The dog seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. With a surprising movement for her physical state, she stood up and walked slowly to one of the corners of the clinic, where Sarah kept bags and emergency equipment. With her muzzle, Luna pulled a small backpack. What is she doing? Asked Emily. Intrigued, Lily approached and examined the backpack. It's almost as if she wanted to come with us. Perhaps we should take her, suggested Charles. Star was always extremely intelligent. August used to say she had a sixth sense. Sarah hesitated, torn between concern for Luna's health condition and the intuition that the dog could in fact be important in that search. I'll prepare an emergency kit for her, she finally decided, and I'll bring her back immediately if I notice any sign of deterioration in her condition. The small caravan departed under the rain that now fell more gently. Charles drove, with Lily in the passenger seat directing the way. Sarah and Emily were in the back seat, with Luna comfortably accommodated between them, wrapped in a thermal blanket. The Wilson property under the flashlight's beam revealed traces of what was once a beautiful country house. Lily breathed deeply as she stepped on that land again after so many years of absence. This way, she indicated, guiding the group along a side path that descended toward the creek. Luna, surprisingly, seemed to gain strength with each step she took on that familiar terrain. Her posture changed, and she began to lead the way as if she knew exactly where to go. It's incredible, commented Emily. It's as if she were reliving memories. When they reached the creek's bank, Luna stopped and began intensely sniffing the ground. A few meters away there was a rock formation partially covered by vegetation. That's the place, confirmed Lily, where the sun meets the water. On clear afternoons, the reflection of the setting sun creates a golden effect exactly on those rocks. Luna headed directly to the base of the rock formation and began digging with her front paws, ignoring her debilitated condition. She knows something, said Charles, approaching with the shovel. Together they began excavating where Luna indicated. After approximately 20 minutes of work, Charles's shovel hit something solid. We found something. Carefully, they unearthed a small metal box, protected by a waterproof cover. The key that was in the envelope fit perfectly in the lock. Lily opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were documents, a flash drive, and a leather-bound diary. My father's diary, she whispered, opening it with reverence. While Lily leafed through the diary by flashlight, Charles examined the other documents. My God, he exclaimed. These are contracts, bank statements, and recordings, all related to the embezzlement of public funds during the construction of the municipal hospital. And the names of those involved are all here, added Lily, pointing to a specific page in the diary. Richard Morgan was just one of the participants. The scheme involved businessmen and politicians from the entire region. That's why your father was silenced, concluded Sarah. And now the resort project. Is a way to permanently bury the evidence, completed Emily. With the house demolished and the land modified, no one would ever find this box. Luna sat beside Lily, as if understanding the importance of that moment. There was an almost human dignity in her posture despite the years of suffering. "What do we do now?" asked Sarah. Charles was already on the phone. "I have contacts in the FBI. They need to see this immediately." While the journalist talked, Lily continued examining the diary. Suddenly, her face paled. "There's something here about my father's fate," she said with a choked voice. Everyone turned to her, hearts racing at the possibility of finally discovering what happened to August Wilson. He writes that he noticed he was being followed and feared for his life. He planned to deliver the evidence to federal authorities, but... Lily hesitated, fighting against tears. "He mentions a contingency plan in case something happened. He says that if fate doesn't allow me to complete this mission, I have found a faithful guardian for the most important evidence." "A faithful guardian," repeated Emily, looking at Luna. As if in response, the dog approached Lily and began gently licking her hand, in a gesture of comfort that transcended species. "My father always said Star was smarter than many humans," remembered Lily with a sad smile. "Perhaps he somehow entrusted part of this mission to her." Dawn was beginning to color the horizon when the group, accompanied by 2 FBI agents contacted by Charles, returned to the veterinary clinic. Michael received them with worrying news. "Jack came back with 2 men. They tried to intimidate me, saying they had official orders to collect the animals," he reported. "When I showed my badge and threatened to arrest them for trespassing, they backed off, but Jack said they would return with the mayor at noon." The countdown had begun. With the evidence in the hands of federal authorities, a race against time started to ensure that justice would be done before Richard Morgan could act. What no one expected was that fate still held one last twist in that story already so full of emotions and surprises. The sun was already high when a convoy of official FBI vehicles parked in front of Sarah's veterinary clinic. Riverdale Springs residents stopped to observe the unusual movement, commenting in low voices and making speculations. In a small town, news spread with the speed of wind. Inside the clinic, the atmosphere was one of controlled tension. The federal agents, led by a stern-faced agent named Deborah Sanders, meticulously analyzed the documents found on the Wilson property. "This evidence is compelling," declared the agent after hours of verification. "We are facing a corruption scheme that extends over more than 15 years and involves not only the embezzlement of hospital municipal funds, but also manipulation of bids and money laundering." "And what about my father's disappearance?" asked Lily, who hadn't let go of the diary that was found. The agent exchanged glances with her assistants. "We'll need more investigation to prove it, but there's sufficient evidence to initiate an inquiry for qualified homicide." Lily closed, her eyes for a moment absorbing the impact of those words. Luna, who remained by her side like a protective shadow, pressed her muzzle against her hand as if offering comfort. "We'll proceed with the arrests immediately," continued the agent. "Mayor Richard Morgan is at the top of our list." As if summoned, by the mention of his name, the sound of tires braking sharply in front of the clinic announced the mayor's arrival. Richard Morgan entered the establishment with his usual authoritarian posture, accompanied by Jack and 2 municipal guards. His countenance conveyed the confidence of someone accustomed to bending situations in his favor. "I've come to fulfill the established deadline. Dr. Mitchell," he announced, initially ignoring the presence of the federal agents. "The animals will be transferred to the Animal Control Center as..." His voice died when his eyes finally registered the badges and weapons of the agents. Then, his gaze crossed with Lily's, who had stood up, August's diary firmly held in her hands. "Lily?" The surprise in his voice was genuine. "What's happening here?" "Justice, Richard," she replied, with a calmness that contrasted with the inner storm she certainly felt. "After 15 years, the truth has finally come to light." Agent Deborah stepped forward, showing her badge. "Richard Morgan, you are under arrest for corruption, bid fraud, money laundering, and potentially involvement in the disappearance of August Wilson. You have the right to remain silent." The shock on the mayor's face gave way to anger. "This is absurd. A political conspiracy. You have no proof of any of this." "We have more than you imagine," intervened Charles, indicating the table where the documents were displayed. August left a legacy of truth that not even 15 years of silence could erase. Richard looked at the documentation and then at Luna, who was watching him with an almost accusing look. Something in his expression changed, as if he finally understood the magnitude of what was happening. "That dog," he muttered. "I should have gotten rid of her when I had the chance." The comment, said almost to himself, didn't go unnoticed. The agent raised an eyebrow. "That could be interpreted as a confession, Mr. Mayor. I suggest you really exercise your right to silence now." While the agents handcuffed Richard and his accomplices, Lily approached her ex-husband. Her posture wasn't one of triumph, but of someone finally closing a painful chapter. "My father entrusted the truth to someone he knew would never betray him," she said, stroking Luna's head. "Loyalty and love are forces that greed will never be able to comprehend." Richard was led outside under the curious gazes of the residents who gathered in the street. The news of the mayor's arrest spread like wildfire, generating a mixture of shock and, for many, a sense of justice long awaited. With the departure of the police, a contemplative silence took over the clinic. Sarah, Emily, Charles and Lily looked at each other, still processing everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. "What happens now?" asked Emily, verbalizing everyone's thoughts. Lily looked at Luna and her puppies. "First, I need to find a place to stay. Then, well, I think I have a property to recover and a life to rebuild here in Riverdale Springs." "You're coming back permanently?" questioned Charles, with a hopeful gleam in his eyes. "Yes," she confirmed. "My daughter. Claire deserves to know her roots, and I need to honor my father's memory, completing what he started." Sarah approached, an idea forming in her mind. "While your house isn't habitable, you can stay in the apartment above the clinic. It's a small place, but it will comfortably accommodate you and your daughter." "And what about Luna and the puppies?" asked Lily. A smile illuminated Sarah's face. "They come with the package, of course. Luna, or Star, is a fundamental part of this story, and I suspect she'll be an excellent guardian for Claire too." The following weeks brought significant changes to Riverdale Springs. The federal operation expanded, revealing ramifications of the corruption scheme in various spheres of municipal and state power. The resort project was suspended, and the Wilson property legally returned to Lily. With the help of the community, which mobilized upon learning the true story, the house began to be restored. Charles, using his influence as a journalist, organized a reconstruction effort that attracted volunteers from all over the region. Claire, Lily's daughter, arrived in town on a sunny Sunday. She was a teenager with bright eyes and a strong personality, who had inherited the determination of the grandfather she had never known. Her adaptation was surprisingly quick, especially after meeting Luna and the puppies, now completely recovered thanks to Sarah's care. "She looks so much like August," commented Charles to Sarah, watching Claire play with the dogs in the newly renovated backyard of the Wilson house. "She has the same perceptive look." Luna's transformation was equally remarkable. With restored health and reunited with the family she believed she had lost, the dog radiated a vitality that impressed everyone. Her puppies, now almost 3 months old, enthusiastically explored every corner of the property, as if they intuited the historical legacy of that place. On a particularly pleasant afternoon, when the sun created golden reflections on the creek, exactly as August had described in his diary, Lily gathered everyone at the location where the box with the evidence had been found. Sarah, Emily, Charles, Claire, and even the dogs formed a circle around a small bronze plaque recently installed. "Soitiki, memory of August Wilson," read Lily aloud. "A man of principles who chose truth above all. His legacy lives through generations, human and canine, that continue his fight for justice." Everyone remained in contemplative silence for a few moments. Luna, sitting beside Lily, maintained an almost solemn posture, as if she understood the importance of that moment. "I believe my father would be proud," continued Lily, her voice laden with emotion. not only for the justice that finally prevailed, but mainly for the bonds that formed from this story. She looked meaningfully at Sarah and Charles, who in the last weeks had developed a closeness that went beyond friendship. Emily smiled, noticing the same. The sunset painted the sky with intense shades of orange and red when the group returned to the house, where a small celebration awaited them. Luna's puppies ran happily around the yard, while the canine matriarch observed with that serene dignity that seemed to carry the wisdom of everything she had lived through. "You know," commented Sarah to Lily as they served lemonade on the newly built porch, "I've always believed that animals enter our lives for a greater purpose than we can initially understand." Lily nodded, observing Luna, who now rested peacefully beside Claire. "Star wasn't just a silent witness to my family's history. She was the link that kept the truth alive when everything seemed lost. And now she has her own family to continue. That legacy," added Emily, pointing to the puppies who, in their playful innocence, represented the promise of a future where the shadows of the past would no longer prevail. Night fell gently over Riverdale Springs, bringing with it the promise of better days. In the main room of the Wilson house, now illuminated by warm lights and filled with friendly voices, a newly framed photograph occupied a place of honor. August Wilson smiled beside a young Star. Next to this, a new photograph showed Lily, Claire, Luna and her puppies, with Sarah, Charles and Emily completing the picture. Different generations, different species, united by an invisible but powerful bond, the search for truth and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest moments, light finds its way. While the town slept under a starry sky, Luna rested at the foot of Claire's bed, fulfilling her mission as guardian, with the same devotion she had shown in protecting August's secrets for so many years. The circle closed, but a new story was just beginning. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope that the journey of Luna and her family has deeply touched your hearts. To continue immersing yourself in equally moving stories full of twists, we've prepared a special playlist with narratives that explore the invisible bonds that connect us to one another. Find it here on the left, with just one click. If this story awakened feelings and reflections in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Daily, we bring new stories that celebrate resilience, loyalty, and the transformative power of love in its various forms. Share your own experiences in the comments,